And ask our keynote speaker, Donna Edwards, to come to the stage. And I would ask LaDonna Harris to come to the stage. I cannot tell you how thrilled and grateful I am that our keynote speaker is the amazing Representative Donna Edwards from my home state of Maryland. Representative Edwards is a leader for women's rights. She is in the thick of the women's economic agenda, having shaped it. She is pushing it in Congress. She is working with Leader Nancy Pelosi, who should be Speaker again, may I say. And Donna never tires in her efforts to achieve women's equality economically and social justice, in respect for women's reproductive rights along the entire spectrum of women's rights. But Donna's work especially has been to end violence against women. In 1990, she co-founded and became executive director of the National Network to End Domestic Violence. And may I say that the NNEDV is now headed by our own Kim Gandhi, the immediate past president of NOW. In 1994, Donna was right at the forefront of efforts to pass the Violence Against Women Act, signed into law by President Clinton. Since being sworn into Congress, she has made huge strides improving the lives of working families and working women and women who are moms and women who stay home and women in every community in this country. And I can't tell you how excited I am to ask her to come to the podium and talk to us about what she's doing.
Well, thank you very much, Terry, and good morning. First of all, I am so excited to be here in Albuquerque, and particularly to be in New Mexico, because Albuquerque is my home where I really learned my politics. I won my first election in Albuquerque, New Mexico, 11th grade class president at Manzano High School. And that taught me a little bit about organizing and a little bit about winning. It took me a while before I could turn that high school victory into a congressional seat. I also was here just before Respect ABQ worked on their work successfully in this last election. And when I was here, I was actually with a group of community leaders and with women trying to pull together that diverse coalition that is the subject of our conversation here this weekend. And not only, and our representative reminds us of that, but not only was there a victory at the ballot box for women, but there also was an electoral victory at the city council here in Albuquerque, because the numbers that turned out to defeat that horrible piece of legislation resulted in an electoral victory on the city council for women here in Albuquerque. And so that is a reminder to us that when we do our politics right and the issues are right and voters turn out, not only can we make change at the ballot box when it comes to our issues, but we can make changes when it comes to those who are our elected representatives. And so thank you, Albuquerque, for that great victory. This morning, I decided today that I would do something that I actually never do, which is, try to use notes, because I got in from my flight last night, and it was a long flight, because we love New Mexico and we love Albuquerque, but I'm telling you, getting here from Washington is a treat. But when I came in last night, and I was trying to think, in and a conversation that we're going to have about diversity and what it means to work across coalitions and to work together, I wondered what it is that I could say to people who are activists, who are always out there on the forefront. You're our leadership. You're our leadership in states all across this country. But it came to me. And it came to me based on a couple of experiences just this week. The earlier experience in the week was the gathering at the White House Summit on Working Families, where there were so many women from all across this country, women, leaders, and activists. And I was doing a panel discussion with young women leaders. And I love it when they put me on a panel with young women, because they do it thinking that I'm all that young, and then I have to talk about how I'm 50, I'll be 56 tomorrow. My son is 25, he'll be 26 in a couple of months, ain't so young. But nonetheless, it was great to be with these young women leaders from all across the country, because they were excited about the prospect of the work that we have to do together. And when I looked across that room, and it was a packed room, and it was every stripe that you can imagine that makes up this great diverse nation. And it was a reminder to us, and especially those of us who are, approaching, those other years, it was a reminder to us that this generation understands diversity in a way that we could never have imagined. Let's not do it wrong for them. Let's make sure that we actually value the diversity that they so naturally bring to the table. And that was the first experience earlier in the week. And then also a young woman came up to me afterwards, and she said in a kind of whispered tone, "I really want to talk to you because I'm a leader in my community, and I really believe in fighting for all of the things that are important for women." We were talking about things like equal pay for equal work and affordable child care and, raising the minimum wage. She said, "I really believe in those things, and I'm a feminist." And I said, "Why are you whispering about that?" And so that was a reminder again that we still have also a lot of education to do. And we as women, have to speak out and articulate our feminism in a way that brings in those young women, so that they aren't whispering about it, that they're shouting about it, and they're working for their feminism. That's something that I learned from like Pat Roos over here, too. I did. And so that was another thing this week. And then there's the Supreme Court, and I know we're going to have a discussion about that, but I just think about that Supreme Court, which happens to be one of the most historically activist Supreme Courts that we have ever experienced in this nation, with a group of people who said that they didn't want an activist court, right? But we're not going to discuss them, because that will just make our blood boil even more. And we have work to do. We can't afford to have the blood just boiling without doing the work. And the work that we have to do is to change our environment, to change an environment that enables a president of the United States to appoint someone in the Supreme Court who's going to make a difference for women's lives. And we do that because we do it at the ballot box. And the way that we do it is we do it by making sure that we keep the Senate, that we build on our gains there, and making sure that we do, as Terry has said, put the gavel back in the hands of a woman who knows how to use it, in Nancy Pelosi. And so that was kind of one lesson. But then the really big lesson for me this week just happened yesterday, 2 days ago. And I was in a discussion with, I will not name them, but some of my Democratic colleagues who are men. And they were expressing such annoyance at the fact that we were just so focused on women, our women's economic agenda, equal pay for equal work, facilitating entrepreneurship among women, raising the minimum wage, because 2/3 of the workers who work for minimum wage are in fact women, providing for quality, affordable child care, because a lot of women, I know that men and families are taking care of children, but an awful lot of women are taking care of their children and can't find quality, affordable, and accessible child care. that has been a broad focus of our women's economic agenda. And why is that? Because women matter. Now look, I just got engaged too. See, a lot of information I'm sharing with you. But I just got engaged, and I mean, to a wonderful man, and it's going to be great. Well, everybody, when you get engaged, the next thing, you can't even enjoy being engaged, because then people start asking you, like, when are you getting married? And it's like, oh, wow, another decision I have to make? And so I just got engaged, and people are asking that question. And I'm a little reluctant right now to answer that question, because here we are in 2014. I'm the chair of the Democratic Women's Working Group in the Congress. It's our Women in Congress. We've, along with our leader Pelosi, we launched this women's economic agenda almost a year to the day ago on the steps of the House of the Capitol. We've just come off of a bus trip that started in Seneca Falls, where women got to work in Seneca Falls, and then we went through to Albany, and down in Boston, and across the country to through Ohio and Illinois, talking about a women's economic agenda, talking about raising the status and the possibilities for women. And this gentleman says to me, we're just so focused on women. And I thought, well, now that I'm all engaged, I don't want to set a wedding date, because this year in 2014, as an unmarried woman that I have been for a long, long time, finally, the politicians want to talk to us, right? And so I'm like, I am so not prepared to get married yet, because they are finally talking to me. And why is that important? Because unmarried women make up more of our population now than they ever have, because they make a difference, because when they show up to vote, they vote for people who care about things like quality, affordable child care, and equal pay for equal work, and raising the minimum wage, and improving jobs and opportunities for women. And the political class is talking to me now. And so I want to be able to respond to that. And I want to make sure that all across this country, in every single state, that we are registering more women, that we are turning those women out to vote, because that is the difference between us getting something on the table that is going to make a difference in women's lives and not. It is really just that simple. And so I have a charge for you. The device, I don't even know what the point is of having these devices. They shut out on you, they time out on you, you lose your notes. So I'm just going to leave that there. Because I have a charge for you. Pat Roos came up to me this morning. I love Pat, because when my son was just 6 weeks old, and he had gotten meningitis, and I was working as an intern for Pat, and I needed that internship, because then I wouldn't have been able to graduate without it. And we were working on this Supreme Court brief, and there is Pat rocking my little baby at 6 weeks old, so that I could sit at the word processor, and it was a word processor, typing out that brief and doing that research. And I thought, part of the reason that Pat had to do that is because my son got meningitis in a substandard child care facility, right? In a substandard child care facility. And all across this country, every single day, women are putting their children at risk, and they're not getting the quality they deserve, and they're not getting the affordability they deserve. And those children are not being raised in a nurturing environment. And so that's why we're focused on those issues. And if somebody says to me, oh, women, that's like another sort of special interest we're focusing on. Well, when you're more than half the population, you cannot possibly be a special interest. And so I got a little bit testy with my colleagues on this issue. And I felt like, as a black woman, you're always telling me, whenever I then began to think about things that are important to my life and improving the status of my life, I have to set that aside so I can think about your life. Well, enough of that already, right? And this is not a battle. This is not a battle, because we know that when we improve the status and the lives and the possibilities for women, we improve the lives and the possibilities for our children, for our families, for our communities, for our economy, right? And so it isn't a special interest. And so I'm glad we are focused on unmarried women in this election. You know what? I'm looking at this sign right here, and it's saying 5 minutes, so I'm going to go really quickly, because this part comes really quickly, but it is the most important. And it's the most important thing this year, because all across the country, in congressional districts, we got some people there who are just not doing what they're supposed to do. And in fact, they are being so counterproductive that they are destructive. And we have to change that. We have to flip that script. We have to change the environment. And I know that that's part of the reason that you're gathered here today. And so I look at a state like Kentucky, for example, and everybody's focused on Allison Lundergan Grimes. And I tried to recruit her. I'm the head of recruitment for the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. I tried to recruit her. She decided she won for Senate. Guess what? We found Elizabeth Jensen in Kentucky to run for that House seat. And so if Allison wins up here, Elizabeth can win right here. And so when you're out in Kentucky, don't forget that House seat, because it does matter who holds that gavel. If you're right here in New Mexico, I know people are telling you, oh, Roxanne Lara, Rocky Lara, what a great name for a candidate. Rocky Lara, and she is fabulous, right? And so if people are telling you in New Mexico that that's not a possibility, you've got that wrong. It is a possibility, and it can only happen when the women of New Mexico go down to take a trip to Las Cruces. I've been there. I was their girl state in New Mexico, in Las Cruces. I know it can get a little hot. But, you know, go to Las Cruces, knock on doors for Rocky Lara, give Rocky Lara money, make sure that you register all of those people who are eligible to vote but who are not voting. Change the environment, flip the script, win the district, okay? And now, because the big "you're done" sign is getting ready to go up, I can tell you in every single state all across the country, because as recruitment chair, I did something that no other recruitment chair has done for the Democrats recruiting for Congress. I've recruited more women to run for House seats than have ever been recruited at any one time in this country. And you know what? This year, I know, for example, that we are going to bring 2 more black women into the House of Representatives. I know that with your help, Rocky Lara and Amanda Renteria are going to come into the Congress, right? So it does matter who's in charge. It does matter who makes the decision. And all across this country, there are men and women candidates who could make a difference, not just because it's about winning elections, but because it's about changing people's lives. And it's about improving an economy, whether that economy is here in Albuquerque or it's in Annapolis, Maryland. It's about changing the environment so that women know their possibilities, so that women who are graduating from college, not only are you not saddled with enormous college debt, but also you don't start out at Jump Street not making what the guy sitting next to you in class, probably falling asleep during class while you were studying, and you don't make the same amount as he does. It matters to me as a black woman because I know that they say that women overall make 77 cents on the dollar, but I know as a black woman, I only pull down 64 cents on a dollar. I know that as a Latina, she only pulls down 54 cents on a dollar. And you know what? People tell me in Maryland women are doing so great, better than women anywhere in the country. Well, you know what? 80 cents on the dollar is not 100 cents on the dollar. And so, I am going to challenge you in whatever state you're in, find some place that you can go to work to flip the script, to register voters, to educate voters, to turn out voters, to focus on women, unmarried women, Hispanic women, Latina women, African American women, Asian women. You do that, and we change our environment. We change our environment. We change the Congress. We change the world. Thank you very much.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Donna. Thank you so much, Donna. You see why I wanted her to be our keynote speaker here. And you have your charge. We have got to get out and elect more women's rights supporters. This year is more important than ever. The right wing thinks they're going to have a replay of 2010, and we have to prove them wrong. And the people in this room are the ones to do that. Okay. I want to continue with our welcoming plenary right now. I've got a very exciting award to announce. And then we're going to get to the more of the business side after that. We're doing things a little out of order, but please bear with me. Now's Woman of Vision Award this year, I am so excited to say, goes to LaDonna Harris. LaDonna is the president of Americans for Indian Opportunity and a long-standing advocate for tribal America, for civil rights, for environmental protection, and for the women's movement. I will tell you that LaDonna and I serve on the board of the National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare. And when I heard she was, yes, and when I heard LaDonna was coming on the board, I was so excited. And she pulled me aside and said, "Have I got stories about Pat Roos for you?" So anyone who wants to know, just come and grab me afterwards. I've got some great stories. LaDonna was a founding member of Common Cause. She was also a founding member of the National Urban Coalition, and she is an ardent spokesperson against poverty and social injustice. She was a founder of the National Women's Political Caucus. Yes. In 1980, she was the vice presidential nominee on the Citizens Party ticket with Barry Commoner. Which insisted on adding environmental issues to that presidential campaign and future presidential campaigns thereafter. LaDonna's influence now reaches into the international community to promote peace. She was an original member of the Global Tomorrow Coalition, the U.S. representative to the OAS, Inter-American Indigenous Institute as well. LaDonna has spent a lifetime advocating for the very issues that are core to Now's purpose. I can't think of a better person to accept our Woman of Vision Award than LaDonna, and I'm going to ask you all to give her a very warm welcome.
Thank you. And it's a great honor to receive this recognition from this group. NOW has been the most effective national women's organization in the United States through the years. And we were laughing, and well, two things happened this week. I was watching the Freedom Riders, if you watch PBS, all of that story coming back at you. And made me think of all of those people. And then Catherine reminded me she was 13 years old, her sister was like 8 years old, and we had picket signs in front, picketing the White House for equal pay. And now she's in retirement, she's retiring, and Laura's just remember how far that goes back. And my sisters who brings to mind, all of those activities bring to mind, such as Dolores Huerta, Fannie Lou Hamer, and Pat Roos, and all of the things that we did at those times that were so we're still working toward. And the diversification of, and why I'm so honored that the subject that you're taking on is so important in today's world, that diversity is almost a tarred word, that the browning of America is occurring. And some people are frightened about that. And some of those fears are certainly unreal because, well, they may be real because we haven't learned about each other enough. We worked on the civil rights, watching that story of the civil rights movement that affected all of us, that promoted us all up. I know in the Indian community it was very vital for us. But reviewing that, one of the things I was thinking about after listening to that in that Democratic convention was just horrifying to remember. I was there at the time. And Fannie Lou Hamer's speech at that time was so brilliant. But thinking about diversity, and when we're thinking, I think we need to find new rhetoric. Not rhetoric, but words. We had good words in the civil rights movement. We need to look at it and change it and break out some of the groupings that we poke people in and change those words into, humanize those words into individuals so that you can recognize. Even when we talk about indigenous people, you know, we're here in New Mexico, we have the Pueblo people who is represented by our representative, Acoma, the beautiful city of Acoma. And then we have they are sedentary people who are farmers, and then we have the Apaches and the Navajos and the Comanches who used to come over and trade or raid with the Pueblos. But we're diverse people even in the Native American community. We have different cultures, we have different languages. So that when we think about diversity, don't just put people in categories. And when we're talking now about immigration, though Mexicans coming over here. Well, now we're talking about Central America. Now we're talking about children and women and children coming over. And we're finding from the Native American point of view that many of those people are coming are indigenous peoples from Central America. And so that by putting them in one big category, we miss the humanization of them. So we need to find new languages. We like to say, thank you. We like to say that and even as Indian people, we're learning how to say, because Indian is more or less the N word in some of the Latin American countries, so we have to learn to say indigenous. So we now have to use the term indigenous to be inclusive of not only indigenous people in Latin America, but indigenous people everywhere. It's a very exciting time, and when people talk about globalization, when men are talking about globalization, they're talking about natural resources. How are we going to get somebody's natural resources? They're not talking about how we're going to live together. You know, we should have been having this conversation right after the civil rights movement about our society. What kind of society do we want? And in fact, we've seemed like we've moved backwards. We've moved back from some of the wonderful stands that we took in the 70s and the 80s and all of those things. So we've got to find a new language. We've got to recognize and not, growing up, I'm a citizen of the Comanche Nation and reared by my grandparents. So I contain a Comanche worldview is what I see of myself. And that I was taught that everybody has value. Everybody has value. You just have to see it in someone. If you go to think, well, everybody has value, you will see that kind of interaction or that production, that contribution that they can make. If you don't see them that way, and of course, we see that what environmentalists and other people are seeing, that we're connected to animals and water and the stars and as we've learned from Euro-American scientists, that we have star quality in our DNA. So that we've always known that as Native people. So that is the environment, all of those things, the humanizing, recognizing we're part of a system. Our bodies are one ecological system. Our heart is our brain is one ecological system. If we think of that, and the world we live in is an ecological system. The heavens are an as we learn more and more and see, you can tell I'm a PBS person. I try to read as well, but to understand that from a Native point of view, and that's one of the reasons we've gone international. We have our first, as Americans for Indian Opportunity, have our first international Indigenous leadership class, and we have people from Japan, the Ainus from Japan. We have a sister organization in New Zealand who copies our model of leadership. We now have Peruvian, Bolivians, and Samoans. So we're kind of taking the Pacific Rim, more or less, in our first attempt at it. So we're very excited about this new step we're taking. And as we are here to talk about our diversity within our own country, let's think about how we reach out, particularly through immigration, how we look at other people, not only just to be respectful of it, but actually we found that we just embracing it, you grow so much, you learn so much, and share by sharing and not saying you know have all the answers. So I love being here. I'm so proud of my award and recognition that you've given me, and I look forward to the rest of the conference. Thank you.
This really is an awesome conference.